know what the internet knows about all of you? Are you aware that you can request a copy of your data from the companies who track us online? That's what Paul-Olivier Dehaye did. He's a Belgian mathematician and privacy campaigner. He got curious about how our data is really used online. So he requested a copy from one of these online advertisers. Now, when he looked at this data, he was quite shocked to see how it's really being used. One company predicted that on June the 9th this year, Paul was likely to suffer from an overactive bladder. Now, Paul was rather perplexed. As far as he was concerned, he had a perfectly normal bladder. So where on earth did this prediction come from? Turns out it came from the weather company. The weather company was predicting that in Paul's local area, it was going to be a sizzling hot summer's day on 9th of June. So they were assuming that people would drink far too much water, making them more susceptible to an overactive bladder. So when I looked at this, I was quite shocked. Now, obviously, they were looking to sell this data to companies who would target these people with adverts for treatments for an overactive bladder. But I was thinking to myself, why didn't they use people's health data? Surely that would be a much more accurate indication of whether someone was really suffering from overactive bladder. But no, Paul's prediction was based solely on his location data. Now, this is just one ludicrous example of how our data is really being used online. Never in the history of humankind has so much data been gathered on our daily activities. And until recently, companies had more data than they could actually realistically analyze. But let me tell you something. That's all changed with advances in artificial intelligence, or AI. Now, one branch of AI focuses on developing software which can actually learn from all this data. It can be trained to identify patterns, make recommendations, or even predictions. So if we feed AI software all this data that we're sharing online, it can figure out our habits, our preferences, where we might go, what we might buy online. In fact, it's getting so good, it's beginning to know more about us than we know about ourselves. Like Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, we're creating an unmanageable monster that we can't completely control. Now, AI has got that good because we've given all this data. We've given away our data in exchange for free apps. We've become obsessed with sharing content on social media and consuming it. Have we sold our souls to the devil? Now, I can understand some of you saying, well, what's the problem? I want to wield power as a consumer. If I give reviews online, that will improve products and services in the future. If I go to a restaurant and I have a truly awful experience, I can go trash them on TripAdvisor. Worse than an evening at Faulty Towers. Now, that'll get their attention. That information is public. They have to do something about that, especially if they want to have any customers anytime in the future. So I can see you thinking, well, I don't have a problem with it. I don't see any negative consequences from this. Well, are you all sure about that? Because the Cambridge Analytica scandal strongly suggests otherwise. People took a personality quiz on Facebook. I'm sure some of you have done this as well, right? You answer a few innocent questions. Next thing you know, they're predicting what your Star Wars name might be. So people didn't realize that this data would be used to infer things about them, like their political preferences. So this information was then used to target certain people on Facebook with content via ads that was designed to manipulate them emotionally, and even worse, influence how they may vote. Now, everyone's talking about Facebook and Cambridge Analytica meddling in our politics. It's been a stark revelation on the darker use of our data. Now, this situation has arisen because we have sleepwalked into a surveillance society. And from that has risen a surveillance economy consisting of data brokers who flog our data to the highest paying online advertising bidder. Now, we can see that it isn't a black or white issue either. There's this grey area in the middle where sharing our data can be for good. Think about health data. We could use that to identify real issues, not potential bladder issues. Just think how much better we could plan NHS services if we could accurately predict just how many people might develop cancer or type 2 diabetes or heart disease. We could ensure we've got sufficient resources to manage these conditions in the future, or even better, prevent them from happening altogether. Now, AI software is critical to helping us do this. To give you an example, Google DeepMind is working with the Royal Free Hospital in London to go through thousands of patient scans to find better ways and more accurate ways of detecting cancer. I'm sure you'll all agree that's a really beneficial use of AI and data. Here's the catch. The patients whose scans they used had no idea their information was being used in this manner, and the hospital was later sued for violating their privacy rights. It shows that we don't have a culture of permission. That needs to change. And it needs to change soon. Now we've got companies offering to analyse our DNA so they can help us trace our ancestry or identify future health risks. How do we know they're not going to sell that data to our health insurance providers? If they do identify any risks, that could make our insurance premiums go up quite a bit. And the situation has only become even more critical in the future. The digital elite, companies like Apple, Amazon, Facebook, Google, and Microsoft, they've all launched virtual assistants. I bet all of you have interacted at least with one of them on your phone. Do you realise they record our every request? Or that they can search all the information on our phones? Of course, they're fun and they're novel to engage with. They tell us jokes and they can play with our kids. They're designed to build that relationship with us, extract more and more information from us until they feel like part of the family. But are they really our friend or foe? Because they will know everything about us, from where we are 24/7, to the requests we make, to our favourite artists. It'll be like having our own personal stalker. But we've invited them right into our homes to sell us things and potentially to spy on us. Take the tale of an American citizen, James Bates. One evening, he invites some friends round for a party at his house. Tragically, the next morning, one of his friends was found dead in the hot tub. Nobody could recall what had happened. So as part of their investigation, the police filed a warrant to gain access to James' Amazon Echo device, which had been left on that evening to play music. So get this, Alexa was called as a witness to a possible murder. But Amazon didn't think of that when they designed her, right? So what would you do in that situation? So Amazon refused to hand over the information on their servers, but James, prime suspect for the murder, eventually relented and handed over his Amazon Echo device to the police. He was later arrested, but the charges were dropped because they couldn't find enough evidence to charge him. Now, this is an alarming tale for two reasons. Firstly, the police can get hold of your Amazon Echo device and then use the data on it against you. Secondly, it raises the question of just exactly what data is Amazon gathering on us? And where are they storing that? On the Echo device itself or in the cloud? The answer? We simply don't know. So, if any of you are planning to engage in any illegal activities over the weekend, and you might just happen to leave your Amazon Echo device on, I'd suggest you perform a factory reset, as I should at least delete any data stored locally on the device. These virtual assistants are just the beginning. They will become not just the heart, but the eyes and ears of our smart, connected homes. I'm sure each and every one of you in this room has a smart TV at home, right? And I'm sure some of you, like me, bought a Samsung TV. So imagine my horror when I read online that some of these TVs had been shipped with the voice activation feature left on. So if, like me, you didn't realize that straight away, your TV's been recording your private conversations. That's not a very comfortable feeling, is it? Then imagine us putting smart thermostats, smart lighting, smart meters in our homes. Collectively, all of these devices will monitor our every movement in the privacy of our homes. Just imagine if they could use this data to predict how often you went to the loo in your own home. And they could do it. Just think about it. They could look at how often you switch on the bathroom light and flush the loo in a 5-minute interval. Crosses a creepy line, doesn't it? But on a positive side, at least they'd have a slightly more accurate way of predicting whether you really did have an overactive bladder. It's the philosophy of the digital elite to track us 24/7 in both the real and the virtual worlds. They will take our data first and ask for forgiveness afterwards. That's how they innovate. Now, people are talking about advert-free models for the internet, but it's not going to happen anytime soon. We simply can't afford to wait. So we have two options. Either we accept that privacy is a thing of the past, or we decide that privacy is worth paying for. The digital elite now dominate the lists of the wealthiest companies in the world. That's how rich they've become. And if they continue to make such significant profits in advertising, what incentive do they have to change their behavior? Now, the EU is taking the lead in rolling out data privacy regulation, and they're also challenging the monopoly of the digital elite. Even this week, the UK competition watchdog also announced that they would be looking into Facebook and Google's monopoly on online advertising and its anti-competitive consequences. So things are beginning to change. But as consumers and citizens, we are cut out the conversation of how our data is being used by the digital elite. So what can we do? Well, we can do 3 things. Firstly, we can make sure that we think carefully about what we post online and make prudent use of those privacy settings. Secondly, we can educate ourselves on how data is really being used. Make that request to one of those companies. Find out what data they do have on you. And then look at investing in privacy tools that protect where we are online. Thirdly, we need to change our mindsets so that we value our data and we're prepared to fight for its privacy. Information may be the oil of the 21st century, but it's the knowledge gained from that information that provides the real power. The digital elite are winning the data war. But I believe the tide is turning with every privacy scandal that emerges. We can reclaim ownership of our data to ensure that it is used for the greater benefit of society, rather than remaining the privilege of the digital elite. If you all don't do it, who else will? Thank you.